great. Thanks for sharing your story. I definitely learned a lot. I'm sure my audience learned a lot. So I guess the floor is yours. Like, what questions do you have about direct mail?
For direct mail, yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in just kind of understanding your process. How do you get the list, let's say? Who are the vendors that you use? Do you outsource it? Just if you can kind of outline what that process looks like.
Yeah. So, for those of my audience, I do have a video on YouTube about direct mail that gives like much detail. But at a high level, what I do is I use PropStream for my data. And I have referral links to all this in my link tree, down below. But I use PropStream for my data, and they have a lot of multifamily filters to pick from. I think it's around maybe 10 to 12 different filters. So it's going to be like garden style apartment complexes, high rises. Sometimes it's commercial, duplex, triplex, fourplex, 5+ units. It's like 5, 10 different filters. I'm sorry, 10 to 12 different filters. And it's based on the classification of the county. And unfortunately, as you know, or maybe you don't know, the classification of county is very inaccurate. Like sometimes it could be a 16 unit, but they classify it as a quadruplex because it's 4 quadplexes. But in reality, it's a 16 unit, right? Or it could be classified as a duplex, but it could be 10 units, but it could be 5 duplexes. So unfortunately, you do have to kind of include more criteria than you would like to hit a wider range of properties. So when you do send the mailers, you might get people calling you where it might be a retail strip center, it might be a duplex, might be a triplex, might be a fourplex, right? So what I do personally is I try to wholesale those deals, and whatever money I make from those deals that I wholesale, that kind of funds my direct marketing campaign. So kind of summarize, I use PropStream for my data. I just got introduced to Property Radar as well. To me, I like to kind of cross-reference my market with PropStream and Property Radar and see which one has the most leads. And then from there, that's how you generate your mailing list, right? So it's pretty easy there. And at that point, you typically can download your data in Excel. And at that point, I send that Excel sheet over to Yell Letters Complete, who's a company that I use. Have a referral link as well to them. They're a third-party mailing company. They specialize in handwritten letters. So it's about $1. When I was doing it, it was $1.50 per letter. I think it increased now. It's about maybe $1.80 per letter, given inflation and, wages going up. But what I did was I would send 300 letters a month. And I don't know why I chose, people ask me why 300, because my market in Oklahoma had around, I think, 1,800 letters or 1,800 leads throughout the entire Oklahoma state. So, I took 1,800 divided by 6. So it's 300 per month. That's how I chose it. Pretty simple. But I would basically send 300 letters per month for 6 months to hit my entire list. And from there, my average response rate was typically around 3% in Oklahoma. Like the less desirable markets, it's about 3%. If you're in a hotter market, like, California, Texas, Florida, your response rate's gonna be about 1%. So if you send 300 letters per month in like California, expect to get 3 phone calls, right? In like Oklahoma or maybe in the Midwest, it's not as popular, expect about 9 to 10 calls. So what happens is you're basically spending about $600 a month, close or roughly, between PropStream and your letters for a direct mailing campaign, right? And out of the $600 you spend, you might get like 10 leads that call you. So that's almost like $60 per lead in a way, right? And as you start sending your letters, that when you go off market, you get a lot of people who are not serious, right? There's people that say, hey, you're from California, overpay for my property, you're rich, right? But as you kind of mentioned, we don't want to overpay, right? Just because like we're based in California and we're investing in like, Ohio, like we don't want to overpay. We just want to pay, what makes sense for us, right? So, you get a lot of those buyers. You have buyers where, they're not very motivated. I kind of have I think I probably have some videos talking about kind of buyers that you'd come across, but you have buyers who I call fishers, and they're just fishing for a high price. They're not motivated at all. You have buyers who, maybe they think their property is worth way more than what you're willing to pay. That's also very common. you have people who have no motivation. They just say, well, I'm not motivated, but if you give me a crazy offer, I might be motivated. So they're not really that motivated. And you have the buyers that are motivated, right? So those are the buyers that, from my experience, if I send out 300, I might get one really motivated buyer per batch on average, right? So it just becomes, as you mentioned earlier, a numbers game, right? And can you do it consistently? So where a lot of people fail is they aren't able to send letters out for like, you have to hit each person at least 7 times to get a response. So if you're mailing a list every 6 months, you have to do that 7 times. That's over the span of 3 to 4 years. And with direct mail and off market, you're not buying properties, you're buying situations, right? Like, what situation are you buying from the seller? Are they going through a divorce? Is there a death in the family and the kids inherit the property, don't want to manage it? Is there a disagreement? Maybe there's a partnership that went bad, right? And they want to get rid of it. Or maybe there's disability. Maybe the owner was self-managing it, and and then now they can't because they got in a crazy car accident. So it's just kind of you're buying situations, and it requires doing a lot of trust. To kind of go in specifics with the letters. So my letters are pretty generic. It kind of just says that, hey, I'm Steven. I give a little introduction about myself. I'm Steven. I'm a pharmacist. I've been working for 10 years. I own a portfolio of however many units that is. I own 90 units. So it's pretty sizable. And just said, I'm looking to buy properties to slowly scale up so that I can, build financial freedom, or let's say you want to pay for your kids' college, or, pay for whatever it is, right? Make it very personable. Talk about yourself. Don't come off as a huge corporation. I hate people who a lot of people that I work with, they have a fancy Gmail account with S corporation or whatever, like SD, I don't even know, Blue Acres, syndicationfund.com. And you just really want to come off as like an everyday person, right? Like, I'm just Steven, hey, I'm just like you. I just want to buy real estate to get financial freedom for myself or for my family, right? The more you come off as a corporation, it turns away people, right? That's just kind of been my experience. So literally when I send out emails or the letters, I just put my Gmail, and it's just like my name, like steven.nguyen@gmail.com, right? Like, it seems more personable. And then even the number I give, it's actually my cell phone number, instead of like you give a call this 888 number. That like seems so impersonal, right? So for me, my kind of strategy that I teach, obviously my students in my mentorship, is it's just a very personalized letter that feels like it's coming from a friend. Like, imagine you just got a letter from a friend who's inviting you to a wedding. That's the type of letter that I want to give. So to kind of dive into the specifics, and sorry, I'm jumping all over a bit today. My brain's a little fried, but I use an A2 size envelope. So that's invitation size. It's smaller. And then what we do is we handwrite the owner's name on the front, and we put a live stamp on top, right? Why do I do that? Why is it handwritten? It's coming from a friend, right? Why is there a live stamp? It feels more personal. It's coming from a friend, right? Versus, like, I'm sure you see a lot of the direct mail. I receive a lot of direct mail, people mailing me to buy my properties. And it's like printed, and a stamp is like that. Like, it's not an actual stamp. It's just like, the pre-printed ones. And it just seems so like corporate. And what I do when I get that letter, I just throw it right in the trash. Right. And I know me, it's like $2 per letter almost. So like, I just threw away $2 of investors' money because they're not good at setting up the direct mail campaign. So, once again, I do that A2 size envelope, invitation size. At that point, I have a letter template that I use, right? So, for those who want it, you can actually purchase my letter template, or if you're part of my mentorship, that's part of it, right? But basically, it's a generic template. You write your introduction, and basically I handwrite 3 call to actions on the letter itself. So the first one is I will, hand sign my signature to make it more personalized, right? And I use my doctor title because I'm Dr. Steven Nguyen. When you have a title, whether you're a doctor, a veteran, a pilot, leverage that title because it builds trust, right? Like, how much more credible do I seem as Dr. Steven Nguyen versus Steven Nguyen, right? Like, if you're investing in the Midwest states, unfortunately, it's mostly, white. They're not used to seeing Asians, right? I'm not sure if you experienced it, but like, Sometimes they kind of look at you in a different way. They may not respond to you a different way. I have a lot of students where they'll call and be like, hey, you're coming from a liberal state. I hate you. Like, what? So there's things that like you have to work against, right? Whether you're, coming from a liberal state and maybe they don't like that. Maybe you're Asian. Maybe you're a minority. They don't like that, right? So any way that you can kind of build that trust and leverage that trust. For me, I mailed Oklahoma. I leveraged my doctor title. I never had someone call me, angry, saying that you're a liberal and you're Asian, right? But my other, students who hit the same market as Oklahoma as me, they've experienced that. I think there's just one owner who's just really against liberals and against minorities, right? Probably waves a Confederate flag around too. But you get a lot of different characters, right? Like, people call you back, cuss you out, they'll text you, they'll cuss you out, they'll email you, they'll cuss you out, right? Just expect that. Like if you door knock, same thing, right? People are gonna give you a hard time. You don't know who you're gonna talk to or who you're gonna interact with. So, just something that you have to go through. But it's just part of the business, right? It's just a numbers game. Don't take it personally and just move on. They're obviously not motivated if they're complaining about you being a liberal, right? They're not motivated. So what I do is I just delete that from my list. I'm not going to contact this guy again, right? And then so I handwrote the signature and I handwrite a call to action saying, hey, Wakefield, call me. Steven, this is my number. I gave you a direct call to action to call me, right? So the point of the letter is to get them to call you. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. Nothing fancy, right? I get a bunch of these postcards. I'm sure you've seen it. A lot of brokerage sends them to me. You see this guy in his fancy suit, kind of like this, looking over like this. And then, they're printed at the bottom and this is fancy, busy postcard that they mail out. I get that. I'm automatically throw that in the trash. If people send that to me, you just wasted $2-3 on me, right? So for me, I do the A2 size envelope. And actually, I don't actually put my name and address on the front side. It's actually, they have to flip it over and then it's on the back side. Why do I do that? It creates intrigue and mystery. Like, hey, who sent this to me? I'm curious, right? And on top of that, what I do is I actually don't seal the envelope. I just tuck the flap back in. So once again, it's like, wait a second, like who opened my mail? So you're just kind of creating these mystery points to get people to open your letter, right? And then once they open your letter, they're going to read it. It's obviously you trying to buy their property, and the goal is for them to call you, right? Or text you or email you, right? And once they do that, the key is to respond within 24 hours, right? Even if the response is, hey, got your message. When can we coordinate a call together, right? Just respond, because you spent $300 a month to get this lead to call you, right? So treat those leads like gold. And at that point, once they call you, it's all about building trust, right? Over the phone. Like this is the hard part that I can't really teach, to be honest. Like for me, it comes a little bit more naturally because I manage about, 60 pharmacy staff as a director of pharmacy on a daily basis. And, it's like babysitting kids, right? So basically it's, in the mentorship in the course, I have like a checklist of like 12 questions to ask. And, the first question I ask is like, oh, tell me about the property. Like it's a very easy ice-breaking question. A lot of times, people love talking about real estate, right? Myself included. They love talking about real estate as if it's their kid. So they're going to talk about it. Like, don't diminish them at that time. Don't say like, another question is like, oh, what's a good price for you? Something like that. And, they'll say like $4 million, but in your mind, it's $2 million. Don't go outright and just say, hey, that's way overpriced. Because now you just lost the trust for that person, right? So you can say, okay, like, usually when I get the offer, during the conversation, usually I'm asking about like, okay, tell me about the property. I'm trying to hit, okay, how much do you make on a monthly basis? What's the occupancy? How many are 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom? How long have you owned it? If they owned it for like, 20, 30 years, it's probably owned free and clear. So you can do creative financing. What's their pain points? So I can understand how to cater my offer around those pain points. And what's their motivation to sell? Like, do they want to retire? So I can kind of create an offer that makes it win-win for me as well as for them, and to make it more personalized, right? So, a lot of people that work with me is, as you mentioned earlier, why not just give it to a broker? Like, obviously my 26 unit, I bought for $500,000, it appraised at $750K. Had they brought it to a broker, they probably could have sold it for more and made more money, right? But I think because some people they don't necessarily care about the top price. They just want to know who they're selling the property to, and that this person is going to do a good job to maintain the property. And that's unfortunately where I think it gets lost, especially in the bigger companies. It just becomes like a spreadsheet, and you kind of lose that personal touch, right? Obviously, the underwriting is spreadsheets, but after a while, it becomes an art. Like the spreadsheet, obviously, it's it's numbers at the end of the day. Obviously, when people underwrite it, if you ask 100 syndicators if they're conservative, what do you think they're all going to say? They're going to say yes, right? Of course, they're going to say yes, but you really have to deep dive into it. Like, is it really conservative? Because no person will tell you that it's not conservative. But then you get humbled once you actually own the property, right? But then with these owners, it's just really building that like trust with them and understanding that pain points. And once you can kind of treat them like a human and not like a number, or like, hey, I need to make 100 offers this month, and you're just number one of 100. That's when you can kind of get these off-market deals. And obviously it's not as scalable, but this is how you kind of hit your home runs off market. So from my experience, I basically bought all my properties off market with direct mail, and I probably walked into about 300K equity day one, right, on both my deals. So yeah, sorry, that's kind of like a high level. Kind of any specific questions?
Yeah, no, super helpful. Just general overview of it. So what, I guess, for you to get, so you're 90 doors, let's say, how many letters was that? How many properties is that? What was like how long did that all take, I guess? Because as we're planning out this campaign, let's say, you set aside a certain budget. Hey, I'm going to do this for a year and maybe get one lead out of it, or maybe zero. Maybe it takes 2 years, or how did that work out for you?
Yeah, so for me, I just want to do 300 letters a month, so it's $500 a month for me. And luckily for me, I only did it for 6 months, and literally from those 6 months, I got 2 deals: my 26 unit, my 20 unit, with instant equity day one. I will say that I'm a little bit luckier because I think even like people told me I've never seen such a crazy response rate. I basically spent $3,000 and I made $300,000 of equity day one through direct mail. That's a huge return, right?
Wow.
On my letter, but not many people will have that success. And I said the differentiation is because I'm able to talk to the owner so well. And that's just a skill that I've honed for like the past 10 years being a pharmacist. So that skill is hard to teach. And for me, I'm very educational, where I like to teach the buyer and be very transparent as to my process. Right. And unfortunately, that gets a little bit lost when you're working with a group where maybe it's 4 or 5 different partners. And it just feels so transactional, right? That's the downfall of the broker. They're just very transactional. Versus me, I'm just like, I want to understand, like, okay, well, you look like you want to retire, right? Or it looks like your kids don't want to manage this anymore, but they like the income, right? And I'm explaining to you, like, hey, I'm making an offer to you, not because I want to give you a low offer, but this is all the bank this is how the bank's going to underwrite the deal. And this is how they look at it. And based on your offer price, that bank won't lend on the deal for me. But at this price, they will. So it's just like making yourself like, hey, me and you are solving a problem together, and you can make, the bank or someone else the bad guy. Or like, just don't make yourself come off as the bad guy, right? So it's just kind of that, and having that patience, right? Like, some of these mom and pop owners, they even have a rent roll, and I literally on the phone with them. You number one, how long have they been there? What's the rent roll? What's the security deposit? I go one by one. It takes a lot of time, right? Especially if it's 135 units or whatever. So it's just really providing that customer service and spending that time with them and helping them, right? Like, I work in healthcare, so I'm used to like being very patient with elderly people, right? And that's the downside of, people kind of our age and our generations. We just want it now, fast. You're inefficient. But just having that personal touch, and it shows, right? It definitely shows. Like, I want to help you. I'm being transparent. And so I think that was my secret sauce, to be honest. Like, it's really hard to train. It just takes repetition and practice. But to me, if you do direct mail, you have to be consistent, because sometimes they clean out. So the second 20 unit, I sent that letter out 5 months ago, and he was just cleaning out his drawer, and he saw my letter. And then he called me. And then that's how I got the deal. Right. And then whatever you say you do it. Right. Like, if you say you're going to write an offer, do it. A lot of times I'll just say, hey, I ran this deal past 10 lenders, including the lender that you gave me, and they all rejected it because the price is too high. So you kind of set expectations and priming them down. So, I've had a lot of success with that, obviously, but you definitely have to commit to it, and you have to be very tenacious in your follow-up and show that you care. And that's where most people fail, to be honest. It sounds easy, but that's where most people fail. And people get discouraged. Like, I have a lot of students where they'll do their direct mail for like 3 months and give up. I'm like, you're not going to get a deal with just 3 months. You have to do it longer than that. So, that's just kind of my 2 cents. Obviously each market is different. But, I imagine in your market, Ohio, it's probably gonna be about 3% response rate. You might get people who are saying, hey, you liberal, why are you from communist from California? Well, how dare you, send me a letter? But, that's just kind of goes with the territory.
Got it. Okay. And what was so how many, all your deals were off market, right? The 90 units. And so how many properties is that total?
So my single families I bought on market. So my 26 unit, my 20 unit, and my 200 lot mobile home park were all off market direct mail.
20 unit mobile home park?
200 lot mobile home park.
Oh, 200 lot. Okay.
Yeah.
All off market. Oh, got it. Okay.
And I got the mobile home park seller financed because I went
wow, seller financed. Okay.
Yeah. So that's how you get seller finance deals, right? You want to cut out the broker because unfortunately the brokers cannot, like, if I tell you Wakefield something and you have to tell someone else, it's like playing telephone, right? Like, the message is misconstrued, trust is lost. If I can talk directly with you, we can build trust.
Sure.
So they're becoming the bank of creative financing, right? So you definitely need trust and that you have their best interest in mind, that you do what you say you do, right? Especially if I'm in California and they're in Oklahoma or Ohio. So that's how I got all my, so that's why I said I went complete opposite of you. All my deals are off market. All my commercial deals off market. Single family homes I own on market, Redfin, Zillow, right? But all commercial, all off market. I've never worked with a broker. All their deals that they sent to me have been terrible. I've worked with many. All their deals are terrible. I've never had a broker bring me a good deal. I've been doing this since 2017 in Oklahoma. Never a good deal from a broker. Way overpriced, and they usually don't want to get creative with creative financing.
Yeah, it doesn't help them because it just makes it more complicated. So they want just straight cash deal, something that's going to be easier for them, right? That's what the broker wants. So for I just wanted to get a little bit deeper into some of these, your conversations and your follow up. So how long? So you're mailing for, let's say, 6 months, and then you got these 2 deals. And what was the process from getting to that person calling you, and then how many follow up touch points until you actually closed the deal? Was it just, they put out some crazy price, and then you said, well, the lender's saying this, it's like not bankable, it's not going to work, so this is a new proposed price? Like, how many I guess conversations, negotiations did it take to eventually get you to the deal? Is that like a month, a couple months? And what was that process like?
Yeah, so for me, mine was pretty fast. By my 3rd month, I got my 26 unit, and the owner just said, make me an offer. So I just said, okay, well, I just give me a rent roll, give me a T12, and I'll make an offer, right? And then he gave it to me. Obviously they can fabricate it, unfortunately, but assuming it's correct, I just made an offer at tax price, and he took it. Like, it was that easy, and because he just was very motivated to sell, he wanted to retire. This guy, I just didn't even talk to him. It was all email. He was a lawyer. He wanted everything communicated via email. So I was very lucky on that one. The second one, that guy actually reached out to me. I made an offer. He actually turned it down. But I think I just got really busy in my mobile home park. I kind of forgot about him. And then all of a sudden I remembered him 6 months later. And then I just texted him saying, hey, did you sell that 20 unit yet? If not, I'm interested in buying now. And then he just said, no, I still want to sell it. And I just talked to him and just said, hey, I know he told me he wanted about 400,000 for it. I underwrote it with a couple lenders. They said that it wouldn't pencil out. So I just said, okay, well, my lender pre-approved me for 350. Would you want to lower it to 350? And he said, yeah. So most of my deals are very easy, to be honest, because they're very motivated to want to sell. So honestly, mine are fast. I'd like to have a little bit of an outlier. It's not the usual experience, but I literally just submit the offer, and it's like they're just very reasonable people to work with. And I don't know, it's just because of the way I communicate with them, or I don't know. But like, anyways, I just was able to diffuse them so much that like it was just very easy for me. I either just got it, and things would progress fast, right? If I said make an offer, I make an offer. If I said I'll get back to you on Friday, I'll get back to you on Friday. If I say that this is the current step, just be open and communicative and text them or call them or email them, however they want to be communicated with. So, like for my next, when I start looking for deals again, I want to record my conversations actually. And I'm having my students in my mentorship program record their conversations so that we can analyze together how you're doing it and improve. Right? No mentorship I've ever seen or been part of actually will do that. Right? I'm actually doing that for people and then just going to upload to YouTube for everyone to learn. Right. So like that's how much I wish I recorded my conversations when I was just talking to hundreds of owners, because that would have been liquid gold, to be honest, and to give a lot of value to my audience.
Yeah, that would be huge. And just to understand how you're talking to the conversations and, be able to follow along there. For your list, as you're pulling it, did you have like a certain criteria? Was it like 20 units plus, and any kind of motivation like ownership period, any filters, or was it just here's the whole list and just kind of send communication to them?
Yeah, just 5 to 100 units
Five
was
to
kind of the
100.
sweet spot. Yeah, because those are more mom and pop owners,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not competing with larger syndicators who want 100 units plus and then at least 2 years of ownership. So for me, that I want the biggest list as possible because I want to hit that list, right? So I know some people like, oh, I want 10 years of ownership, but it makes your list smaller. But it depends. If you're kind of hitting a wide area like the Midwest, then maybe you can make it the ownership a little bit longer. But for me, it's 5 to 100, 2 years plus ownership. That's it. Real simple. Owners and LLCs doesn't matter. Like both the properties I bought were under LLCs, but it was owned by one person. That's like me, right? I own LLCs, but it's just owned by me. So I'm basically like a mom and pop almost. So really simple. Yeah, really simple strategy. Had crazy results from it. And but yeah, I haven't, it's hard to replicate. Definitely. I'm not sure if even I can do it,
Yeah.
another time again.
Got it. Okay. And have you so I guess when somebody calls you from these, they're motivated, right? Have you considered like texting at all? I know people do a texting strategy, or you think letters has been, I mean, obviously letters have been pretty effective for you. Direct
I
mail.
mean, know your demographic, right? So most people own an apartment complex are like 60 plus. So they actually appreciate a letter. Cold texting is actually illegal, depending on how you do it, because they technically have to opt into it. But if you're cold texting somebody, it's technically illegal, right? So, a lot of messages will get blocked. And like to me, if I get a spam message, like it's annoying. Like I just block it automatically. Or even cold calling, I block it. It's all spam. It's usually a VA calling you. And it's just like so annoying. So for me, I like the letters because like it's more passive. Like you just send the letters out. Like I automate all that, and I just wait for people to call me. I'm more motivated versus if you text and a cold call, you have to hire a VA, and a lot of times they're not going to be, a VA is not going to be as personal, right? You can definitely scale, but they're not going to be as personal in talking to people. So, and the greatest, way to get off market leads is building a personal brand, right? So I hope people bring me deals in Oklahoma because they know that I invest in Oklahoma, right? So it's definitely a way to go. So for me, it worked for me because I'm really busy. I work W-2. So, I just want to send the mailers out and they call me. It's plain and simple. Plain and simple.
Right. Okay. And they're really motivated by the time they call you, right? So they're a warm
Yes.
lead, and you already know that they're probably willing to sell at some price.
Yeah, they opened my letter and took the time to call me, right?
Right.
That took 2 steps of effort. So they're definitely more motivated, at least, right?
Right. And for your list, are you, so how big is your total list, and are you hitting the same people? Like, are you rotating, or you hit the same people like just 6 times in a row until
Yes.
you move to like the next batch?
Yeah. So basically, you want your list. You want to hit your one prospect at least once every 6 months.
Okay.
6 months is kind of the sweet spot. If you do too soon,
Okay.
it gets annoying,
Okay.
right? It's like every month is annoying. So for me, if you're sending 500 letters a month, you want your list to be at least 3,000. So you can hit that list once every 6 months. But you have to hit that list 7 times at least.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of how my frequency.
So if you need to hit that list 7 times and you're doing it twice a year, so that's about like a few years, like 3 or
Yeah,
4 years.
3, 4
Okay.
years. Yeah. Buying situations, right? Like
Yeah.
your situation today might be okay, but in 3 years, maybe something bad happened and they're a different situation. So yeah, that's why you have to be consistent.
Got it. Okay. And for the students in your group, what has been their kind of success rate or like timing? Have they been able to, get something within a few months or a year or 2 years, or is it?
Um, so the downfall of a lot of my students is like they can't consistently do it.
Mhm,
So I actually offer, if you look at my mentorship, I actually offer the direct mail where I do it for them for 6 to 12
mhm,
months.
mhm,
Obviously it costs more money
mhm,
compared to doing it yourself, right? But then basically I just do it for you. So
mhm,
of course you're going to do it. But usually like the percentage has been about right. It's been about 3 to 10 leads
mhm,
per month,
mhm,
depending on the market. And I've one of my students got a crazy deal in downtown San Antonio. This person owned it for 3 generations and she wanted to
mhm.
sell it, and it's owned free and clear, obviously, right? They owned it for three
Yeah.
generations.
Right.
And fortunately he wasn't tenacious in his follow-up and kind of gave up, right,
Mhm,
on that deal. So it's just really you saying the letters and being tenacious in your follow-up and making the deal work. Because like that property, I mean, downtown San Antonio, that's prime, right?
Wow,
And
that's a
and
great
and
location.
and it's owned free and clear. So I'm like, dude, you can pay whatever
Mhm,
price they want, just
mhm,
the terms. You just want the terms. So that's kind of been the downfall of a lot of people is they just can't do it consistently and
mhm,
follow up and be tenacious with it. That's my strength. That's how I bought 90 units so fast. But that's where my students are failing. They lose motivation after like 1 or 2 months. I just said, you got to keep on going. Like you got to keep on going and make those offers. And I just said, recorded conversations and,
mhm,
maybe you're not talking the way you should be. Cause I can give you a list of questions, but how I interpret versus you, it's gonna be different. Right.
mhm,
So that's why I pivoted and said, you know what, let's start recording these conversations and I'm going to coach you on how to do it better, um, and record that and release it, to everybody for free. So, it's just really that repetition. And because for me, like I said, I've been doing the leadership for like 10 years. So it's very natural for
mhm,
me. I'm very
mhm,
natural at it. I don't need any like training or practice on
mhm.
it. It's just very natural.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, right? Is that human element to it, right? Everybody can kind of figure out how to get the leads, but the difference between you get the deal and you don't is just that human element, interaction, and the soft skill of helping them solve the problem and understanding the pain point and how can you add value to them and just be a reliable person. So definitely that makes sense.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, I'm crunched on time. Unfortunately, I had a hard stop at 3:30, but thank you so much, Whitfield, for hopping on, um, sharing your journey, and yeah, would love if you want more questions about direct mail. Happy to answer more questions at a later time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, definitely super helpful. So thanks for sharing all of this, and love to keep in touch on it and maybe try it out. And yeah, if any of your listeners want to reach out to me, happy to
Yeah,
share my contact or website if people want to find out more.
yeah, just give me the link, and I'm happy to drop it down in the description when the video is released.
Okay, that
But
sounds good.
all right, man, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Steven.
Yep, have a good
Okay,
one.
all right, everyone. You too. Bye.